Ever feel like you're always reacting to the environment around you, like a puppet on a string, with your emotions being controlled by every small event? It all adds up, right? A nasty remark from a stranger, a missed deadline at work, a traffic bottleneck late forming. We seem to be at their mercy while still being continuously bombarded by outside forces. But suppose I told you there was another road to more inner strength, tranquility, and resilience. A means of negotiating life's difficulties without always feeling as though one is off balance. Today we are looking at the power of acting as though nothing affects you, and how this apparently small but significant change in viewpoint can release your entire potential and enable you to lead a more deliberate, more contented, and more tranquil life. Number 1. The illusion of control. We spend so much time reacting, allowing every tiny detail to irritate us. It all adds up, right? A nasty remark from a stranger, a lost chance for a promotion, a traffic congestion that causes us to be late for a crucial meeting. Our days are like pinballs, bouncing from one outside stimulation to the next, our emotions shaped by the vagaries of the environment. Information, needs, and expectations abound. We sometimes feel as though these outside forces control us. Someone says something snarky, and we flush in our face and get angry. A project comes through, and we start to doubt our value and ability. We empower our internal state so much by these outside elements. Trapped in a seeming never-ending loop of cause and effect, where outside events shape our inner experience, we become prisoners to our reactions. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, sagely advised. Repeated and considered for millennia, this straightforward phrase reveals a great truth, a key to enable a more tranquil and satisfying life. It's not the incident itself, rather our perspective of the event, our assessment of it, is what makes us uncomfortable. Just consider that for a moment. Say a job loss. Two persons can go through the same tragedy, yet respond in quite different ways. Feeling like a failure, and with their world collapsing all around them, one could sink into hopelessness. The other could view it as a chance for a fresh start, a means to follow a different career route, or a chance to at last launch the company they have been dreaming about. Though their opinions of the incident, their interpretations of its significance, are quite different, the occurrence is objective. And those several interpretations, that which we tell ourselves about the meaning of the event, cause quite distinct emotional reactions and consequent behaviors. Though we think we are in charge, are we really? We are continuously surrounded with stimuli, sights, sounds, smells, phrases, happenings, and we respond almost instantly, like puppets on a string, our strings pulled by these outside forces. From early life, we are conditioned to react angrily to perceived insults, with sadness to perceived losses, with worry to believed threats. We hardly even consider this reactive manner of life, as it is so firmly rooted in our habits of thought and action. We take our emotions as a direct and unavoidable result of our circumstances. We consider ourselves to be merely passive receivers of these emotional states. The external event generates the emotional reaction. The reality is, though, a truth the Stoics knew thousands of years ago, a truth modern psychology is starting to fully value. We have considerably more influence than we realize. It's not about stifling our feelings, acting as though we don't experience them, or discounting them until they blow out later. It's about realizing them, appreciating their presence, knowing where they came from, and then deciding how to react instead of behaving without thought. It's about recovering control of our emotional condition. It's about pausing, a moment of cognitive awareness between stimuli and response, a place where we could choose our behavior instead of acting out of pure impulse. It's about realizing that our feelings are interpretations, judgments we make about the environment we live in rather than facts. It's about realizing the vital distinction between what we can control, our ideas, opinions, decisions and behaviors, and what we cannot, everything else. The foundation of Stoic philosophy is this: the weather, the economy, other people's behavior, traffic, or the variety other events that transpire around us are beyond our control. Attempting to control these things, to bend reality to our way, is a roadmap for disappointment, frustration, and finally suffering. It's like attempting to use a teacup to regulate the ocean tides, a fruitless and draining effort. We can, however, regulate our decisions, opinions, and behavior. We can decide how we view events. We are free to give them whatever significance we so desire. We have choices about our reaction to them. Our real power is here. Here we cease being puppets and begin to command our own destiny. This is when we start to act as though nothing influences us, not in a distant or apathetic manner, but in a way that lets us negotiate the environment with more serenity, resilience, and finally, pleasure. It's about realizing that although we have no influence over what happens to us, we have influence over our response. And the secret to leading a good life, a life of purpose, meaning, peace, that is that decision and that power. It's about becoming less reactive, more deliberate, and more in charge of our inner world, not about becoming heartless. Number 2, shifting the focus. Consider a fighter in the ring, totally focused on competition. They are under continual attack with uppercuts, hooks, and jabs. Now, if this boxer flinches or responds to every single feint, every small jab thrown their way, they would burn themselves in the first round and leave themselves wide open for a knockout strike. They would be exposed to the more severe attacks, since they would be wasting valuable energy on little threats. A seasoned boxer is wiser. They strategize, save their energy, predict the actions of their opponent by analyzing their tendencies and weaknesses. They pick their fights, knowing which punches to block, which to slide, and above all, which to counter with a forceful blow of their own. They are deliberately focusing their attention and energy on what really counts, winning the battle, rather than reacting reflexively to every single input. They realize not every punch merits a response. Our daily life calls for the same kind of thinking. Jabs, little annoyances, tiny inconveniences, ephemeral disappointments abound around us. The overflowing email, the poor internet connection, the colleague who makes a passive-aggressive remark, the driver who cuts us off in traffic. These apparently little annoyances can mount up fast, saps our vitality, and clouds our concentration. If we respond to every single one of these, if we let each minor annoyance divert our attention and control our emotions, we would emotionally and psychologically burn out. We will be restless, worried, and finally less successful in following what's really important in our life. We start to resemble the boxer who flinches at every feint, squandering valuable energy on ultimately useless objects. We should purposefully and actively focus on what really counts: our long-term goals, our inner serenity, our general well-being, instead of reacting to every tiny annoyance, every imagined slight, every small setback. In our life, what are we attempting to accomplish? We want to be what sort of person? For which values should we live? These are the questions we ought to be posing to ourselves, and these are the areas of focus for our energy. These are the things that will provide us long-lasting gratification and direction. In his letters to Lucilius, Seneca underlined in several times the need of paying attention to the present and avoiding thinking back on the past or stressing the future. He realized that our mostly powerless control over the past and the future. The past is gone, unchangeable, and dwelling on it just causes regret and recrimination. The future is unknown, a huge swath of possibilities, and worrying about it just makes one anxious and terrified. Fixing on them merely causes needless sorrow and keeps us from really appreciating the richness and possibilities of the present. This deliberate awareness of the here and now, this emphasis on the current moment, helps us to respond more deliberately. We are free to totally live the moment when we are not mired in regrets about yesterday or fears about tomorrow. We may see our responses free from judgment, know where they come from, and then choose deliberately what we want to do. Driven by old habits and unconscious prejudices, we are no more merely reacting on autopilot. Instead, we are acting with intention and goal. We start to become the boxer who deliberately directs our energy and attention toward which punches to block and which to counter. True agency comes from here. This is where we start to take charge of our life, not by dictating outside events, which is usually unattainable, but by regulating our own reactions to them, which is always within our power. It's about realizing that regardless of how difficult or disruptive any given circumstance is, our only power to decide how we react to it is own. Focusing on the present helps us to access that power and use it sensibly, so guiding our attention to what really counts, and so building a life of purpose, meaning, and inner peace. It's about turning our focus from the outside noise, the continual assault of stimuli, to the internal compass, the still, small voice of reason and wisdom, letting it direct our behavior and mold our experience. Number 3, the power of non-reaction. This is not about stifling feelings. Rather, it's about burying them far down till they fester and then explode in disastrous ways. It's not about turning into a cold, unempathetic automaton devoid of human connection, a robot. It's not about discounting the truth of our emotional experience. Being human involves naturally occurring fundamental emotions. They give us insightful knowledge about our requirements, the surroundings, and ourselves as well as on the globe. They can warn us of danger, call attention to injustice, and motivate us to get moving. Denying our emotions is to ignore a basic feature of our humanity. But what we often overlook, what we have been trained to overlook, is that we have a strong, transforming choice about how we react to those emotions, whether we choose to comprehend them, handle them, and finally control them, or whether we let them define our behavior, seize our reason, and run our life. Not the lack of feeling, but rather the deliberate management of our responses defines non-reaction. It's about deciding our response instead of reacting instantly like a knee-jerk reflex. It's about choice. A classic trigger for road rage. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and that surge of wrath, that sense of violation, rises within you. The instant conditioned impulse could be to tailgate the other motorist, horn violently, maybe yell obscenities or use forceful gestures. But what then does that achieve? Long term, does it help you feel better? Does it turn things around? Does it cause the other motorist to improve or apologize? More often than not, it simply makes things worse, increasing stress, aggravation, and maybe even a deadly conflict. It can ruin your entire day as well as your commute and sour your own attitude. In this sense, non-reaction is the ability to inhale deeply, maybe even count to 10, realize the sense of annoyance or rage, identify its source, and then deliberately choose a different response. Maybe you just let it go, realizing that nobody is perfect, that everyone makes errors, that being enraged won't change what happened, and that it absolutely won't help your commute. You decide to give your own peace of mind top priority above letting yourself get angry. Your colleague makes a snide comment, a little dig at your work, appearance or character, that stinging of hurt, that sense of being devalued. The natural, conditioned urge could be to strike back with a sharp comment of your own, to protect your ego and place it in order. Again though, what is that aiming at? Does it help you to see yourself better? Does it help your relationship with a coworker? It simply fuels the negative, makes the workplace unfriendly, and fuels a loop of resentment and anger. In this case, non-response serves to prevent providing them the gratification of a reaction. See the comment, accept the hurt or anger it causes, figure out why it affects you, then deliberately decide to go on. Give them no ability to control your emotional state. Steer clear of their small game. If it's really essential, maybe you handle the matter quietly and professionally later. If not, maybe you just opt to rise above it, since their comment speaks more about them, their anxieties and their own issues than it does about you. See, note, and then move forward. The underlying idea is this: see the feeling without assessment, without classifying it as good or bad. Acknowledge its presence, know its source, try to figure out why you're feeling this way, but avoid let it control your actions. Then, deliberately decide to forward, to focus on something more upbeat, more useful, more significant. In his meditations, Marcus Aurelius, his personal journal full of wisdom and self-reflection, constantly reminded himself to accept what he couldn't control, which included other people's actions, opinions and judgments, and to concentrate on virtue, on living a life of reason, justice, courage, and wisdom. He saw that behaving in line with reason and nature constituted virtue, the only true good. Vice, acting against reason and nature, was the only true evil. Everything else, including riches, health, reputation, even life itself, was meaningless, neither good nor bad in and of itself. Rather, it was only the raw component with which we displayed virtue. This viewpoint, this awareness of what really important, helped him to remain calm and balanced, even in the midst of great hardship, political intrigue, and personal challenges. That is, equanimity. By means of this conscious, deliberate decision to govern our responses instead of allowing them to dictate us, this non-reaction exercise helps us to save our emotional as well as physical energy. We are not squandering priceless resources on anxiety, bitterness, or wrath. We are not letting the actions, words, or behavior of others drain our energy, disturb our peace, or divert our attention. And by saving our energy, by safeguarding our inner resources, we can concentrate on what really counts: our goals, our values, our well-being, our development personally. Even in the middle of outside tumult and upheaval, we can keep our inner peace, feeling of balance and tranquility. We can negotiate the planet with more peace, fortitude, and finally happiness. It's about becoming less reactive, more intentional, more conscious, more in charge of our inner world, our thoughts, our judgments, and our actions. Not about becoming heartless or about stifling our feelings. It's about learning to master our own emotional terrain instead of living at its slave's will. Number 4. Building resilience. Curveballs will always be thrown by life. This is merely an honest recognition of reality. It is not a cynical or negative perspective. Natural life is erratic. Things happen outside of our control. Relationships fall apart. Employment prospects pass by. Health issues develop. Money problems surface, and natural disasters strike. Though we can arrange and get ready, We cannot completely rule out the potential of unanticipated circumstances upsetting our life. Not only is it impractical, but also finally self-defeating to try to live a totally controlled, risk-free life. It is a fruitless and finally useless attempt to build a house that will never see rain. The Stoics identified this basic reality about the nature of life and created a philosophy especially meant to enable us negotiate these unavoidable obstacles with more insight, calmness, and power. But we develop resilience by deliberately choosing our response to these unavoidable difficulties and by learning non-reaction. We never grow impervious to suffering, disappointment, or loss. We are not advocating that we should get emotionally numb or disengaged from the world. The Stoics were not pushing emotional repression. Instead of being carried away by our emotions, they underlined the need of knowing them, appreciating their presence, and then selecting our response to them. Resilience is about building the ability to bounce back from adversity, learn from it, grow from it, and come out stronger and wiser on the other side. Not about avoiding difficulty. It's about building the mental and emotional resilience to ride out life's unavoidable storms without entirely collapsing under them. Consider it as developing muscle. Avoiding exercise does not help you become stronger. Rather, it protects your muscles from any form of strain or stress. Actually, the reverse is true. Pushing yourself, challenging your muscles, and allowing little tears in the muscle fibers that subsequently heal and regenerate will help you to get stronger and more resilient than before. Building strength is the experience of overcoming opposition. Similarly, we develop emotional and mental resilience by facing challenges, by experiencing setbacks, by confronting our fears, and by choosing to respond to these difficulties with wisdom, courage, and an eye toward what we can control, our thoughts, judgments, and actions, rather than dwelling on what we cannot control, the external events themselves. We start to resemble the oak tree that bends in the wind but doesn't break, instead of the reed that breaks under pressure. Resilience is best understood in traditional terms here. Every breeze of wind and every small disturbance can readily affect the delicate reed. It is not strong enough or flexible to resist the natural pressures. A violent wind comes along and snaps, breaks, destroys. Conversely, the oak tree is rather robust, well anchored and sturdy. Its strong roots firmly ground it and give solidity and strength. Its flexible enough branches let it resist even the toughest storms by bending with the wind and adjusting to the changing surroundings. It bends but not breaks, therefore adjusting to the wind instead than resisting it. It responds to the power of nature rather than in submission. It lets it flourish instead. The Stoic aim is to grow to be like the oak, robust and sturdy, able to withstand any storm life presents. It's not about turning cold-blooded or apathetic to the surroundings. It's not about discounting our suffering or stifling our emotions. It's about developing inner strength, the capacity to control our emotions, appropriate reaction choosing, and finding meaning and direction even among hardship. It's about realizing that obstacles are chances for personal development rather than things to be avoided. They help us to shape our character, learn more about ourselves, and enable us to be the best versions of ourselves. It's about accepting the unavoidable challenges of life, understanding that they are the furnace in which our resilience is created and the fires that dull our spirit. And resilience, that inner strength, that capacity to bounce back, is what enables us to not just survive the hardships of life, but also to thrive, to live with purpose, meaning, and joy, regardless of what life throws our way. Number 5. The ripple effect. Here is where things really become interesting, when very abstract ideas start to show up in concrete, practical improvements. Something deep changes, something subtle but unquestionably strong when you regularly and sincerely practice non-reaction, when you really cease reacting impulsively, habitually, emotionally to environmental stimuli. It's not only about managing your own inner state, it affects the basic fabric of your contacts with other people. People notice, though they might not be able to express it or even consciously recognize it. They feel your serenity, your composure, your newly acquired inner peace and self-possession. Like a faint but noticeable change in the energy field surrounding you, silent strength radiates from inside. Your aura of peaceful confidence, of self-mastery, and that one radiates, has a real effect on how people view you, and thus, how they engage with you. It subtly but significantly alters the dynamic of your relationships, personal as well as professional. People have suddenly less ability to press your buttons. The typical strategies they could have used to harass you, control you, get a rise out of you, set off an emotional reaction, no longer work. Expecting a response, they toss a baiting comment, a subdued insult masquerading as a joke that will cause you to become enraged or defensive and therefore rise to the bait. But you not do. You stay cool, collected, unkempt. You might just decide not to participate at all, or you might respond politely and neutrally. They come to see that their words and deeds no longer have the ability to dominate your emotional state, to seize your peace of mind, or to challenge you. Like attempting to punch a shadow, there is no weight or point of impact. Their words flat, their jabs lose their sting. For those who are used to getting a response from you, this sudden absence of reactivity can be rather confusing and even distressing. They can try harder, intensifying their attempts to irritate you, get more forceful, more personal in their assaults. Eventually, though, they will see that non-reaction is a losing game if you stick to your technique without wavers. Though they won't really know why they're now acting differently toward you, they will start to respect your limits. The dynamic changes because you have changed yourself, not because you have altered others' conduct. You cannot influence it. Your responses have altered, hence naturally, so does the way others treat you. It feels like a dance. Should one partner abruptly alter their path, the other partner, consciously or unconsciously, must adjust their own motions. Stopping your reactions is like changing the dance steps in your encounters. That compels others to change their strategy, since you are not following the same script and you are not playing the same game. Over time, they might even begin to reflect your serenity and calm, thereby learning from your behavior. They could start to see that the best approach to get what they want or to express themselves is not acting with wrath or hostility. This knock-on impact can reach much beyond personal exchanges. It can affect the general environment at your house, business, even your neighborhood. Those around you may find peace when you exude serenity and tranquility, as well as when you show inner strength and resilience. It can help to de-escalate tense events, lower conflict, and provide a more harmonic surroundings. Like tossing a pebble into a still pond, the ripples affect everything they come across. And the knock-on effects of non-reaction, of conscious control of your responses, can be just as strong, producing a tsunami of good change in your life and the life of people around you. It's about becoming a source of peace and strength, a constructive influence in a world sometimes felt as chaotic, overpowering, and reactive. It's not about becoming passive or apathetic to the world. It's about shining a lighthouse of peace in a sea of response. Number 6. Protecting your peace. Setting limits can be powerfully and often silently accomplished by acting as though nothing influences you, or more precisely by deliberately controlling your behaviors and responses. It's not about erecting impervious barriers around oneself, separating yourself from other people, or emotionally disengaging from the planet. It's about setting unambiguous, reasonable and flexible boundaries on what you will and won't accept in terms of other people's conduct, words, actions, and how those outside influences affect your inner emotional state. I'm in control of my emotions, and I'm not going to let you dictate how I feel. You are essentially telling the world, not exactly with clear statements, but with your constant acts, calm demeanor, and understated reactions. I refuse to let your words or deeds seize my mental clarity. Protecting your mental and emotional well-being, conserving your inner resources, and establishing a place where you can flourish all depend on this. Absolutely necessary, totally essential. Consider this. How frequently, either deliberately or unintentionally, do we let other people control our emotional state? Even if it's presented with a veneer of helpful critique, a critical statement from a manager may quickly spoil our day and leave us feeling demoralized, insecure, and doubting of our own skills. A family member's slights, a subtle dig at our character or decisions, can set off a spiral of self-doubt, resentment, and hurt emotions. We give our internal world, our feeling of self-worth, and our emotional balance so much control over these external influences, often transient and finally meaningless events. We recover that power, though, when we practice non-reaction. That is, when we deliberately pick our response instead of reacting emotionally, impulsively, and automatically. We restore our emotional terrain to us. We convey a clear, if sometimes silent, message that we are not readily manipulated, that our emotional condition is not up for grabs, that we are not eager to be emotional punching bags for the frustrations or fears of other people. Establishing limits is not about being harsh, forceful, or combative. It's about creating permeable, healthy membranes rather than about erecting walls. It's about being aggressive, about being clear to yourself as much as to others, about what you will and will not allow. It's about guarding your mental space, emotional well-being, inner serenity. It's about realizing you have basic rights to guard yourself from negativity, from poisonous relationships, from emotionally taxing events, from people who often violate your limits. It's about appreciating your own health, sufficient to say no when called for. Imagine someone in your life often making jokes at your expense, comments that are not lighter or entertaining, but rather subtly veiled insults, digs at your appearance or choices. In the past, you could have chuckled along uneasily, tried to shrug it aside, sought to downplay the pain, but inwardly felt wounded, bitter, and lessened. But right now, you engage in non-reaction. You don't become enraged. You don't respond with a sharp comment of your own. You just lack the response they are seeking. You might respond neutrally, non-committally, or you might decide not to participate at all, allowing the comment to hang in the air, unmet and unresolved. Your jokes are not welcome here, this clearly, forcefully non-verbal message says. I'm not affected by them. I'm not going to take part in this dynamic. I'm not going to provide the emotional reward you're looking for. You are establishing a boundary with calm, quiet power and a subdued but clear declaration of your own self-respect, not with rage or hostility. From the apparently small to the very important, this idea of non-reactive boundary setting can be used in many contexts. With colleagues who are constantly interrupting you and wasting your time, with anyone disrespecting your time, your energy, your emotional well-being, or your personal space. It can be used to set boundaries with demanding family members who are always making irrational requests, with pushy salespeople who refuse to accept no for an answer, or with anyone else. It's about realizing you have the right to say no, set boundaries, guard your peace of mind without feeling compelled to defend or rationalize your decisions. The important thing is also that establishing limits is not egotistical. It's not about indifference or conceit. A basic component of emotional and mental wellness, it's a necessary act of self-care. It's about realizing your own value and worth and giving your own health top priority. It's about realizing you can't pour from an empty cup. If you are always being depleted by other people's negativity or by circumstances that challenge your boundaries, you cannot successfully care for others, significantly contribute to your relationships, or pursue your goals with energy and passion. You are really making yourself more accessible to others, more capable of giving and contributing in a constructive and lasting way by safeguarding your peace and by establishing reasonable and suitable boundaries. You are creating the space, the emotional and mental breathing room. You are not shutting the world out. You must thrive, bloom, and lead a life of purpose, meaning, and delight. You are taking charge of your life by means of your choice of response to others, which is always within your power, rather than by means of control of others, which is often unachievable. And that is finally the most potent and successful limit you can impose. Number 7. Boosting confidence. When you're not constantly being influenced by outside events, when you're not always reacting emotionally and impulsively to every little thing that life throws your way, the small irritations, the unanticipated setbacks, the apparent slights, you naturally, organically, and almost certainly grow more confident. This is not a surface-level, ego-driven form of confidence, that which derived from outside affirmation or accomplishment. It's not about attempting to wow others or boasting or bragging, not because you're perfect or because you have some magical power, but rather because you have developed the inner strength, resilience, and emotional intelligence to wisely, courageously, and equanimously negotiate life's inevitable challenges. This is a deep, grounded, and authentic self-assurance from inside. Unlike purchasing a new wardrobe, this confidence is not something you get overnight. It is not a magic medication or a short fix. Through constant practice, repeated trials, control of your reactions, learning from your failures, and eventual emerging stronger and wiser on the other side, you gradually and steadily develop. Every time you choose non-reaction, that pause between stimulus and response, where you deliberately choose how you will respond, over impulsive, emotionally charged reaction, each time you set a healthy boundary and protect your peace of mind, each time you face a setback, a disappointment or a failure and bounce back with renewed determination, you're reinforcing your belief in yourself, you're strengthening your inner core, you're deepening your self-trust. By your behavior, you are demonstrating to yourself not only your words, but also your capability, resiliency, and ability to manage whatever life presents. It's about building the ability to confront challenging circumstances with grace and bravery, not about avoiding them. You trust yourself in a peaceful, grounded, and consistent manner, rather than in a boastful or haughty one. You trust yourself to make sensible judgments based on your principles and best judgment, not perfect decisions. Rather than being under control, you trust yourself to properly govern your emotions, to accept them without judgment, to find their source, and to decide how you will react to them. You believe you can grow and personally better from your mistakes. Hence, you view them not as failures, but rather as worthwhile chances for development. And you believe yourself to be persistent, especially under trying circumstances when the road gets rough and you run against challenges and hurdles forward. Even if life seems hectic or stressful, you trust yourself to manage ambiguity, to adjust to change, to welcome the unknown, and to discover meaning and purpose, even in the middle of difficulty. True, real confidence is built on this profound, relentless self-trust. It's about believing in your own ability to negotiate whatever life presents, not about thinking you're superior than others. And that confidence, that inner power, that quiet self-assurance shows. You have not to declare or announce this. You don't have to act or pretend about it. Others experience this. Your body language, manner, interactions, very presence all help to convey this. You show a calm, a poise, a self-assurance when you are really sure in yourself and based in self-trust. People perceive it. They find it appealing. They are more likely to listen to you, seek your advice, appreciate your thoughts, and trust you more and respect you more. In your company, they feel safe and protected. It is a positive feedback loop, a self-reinforcing cycle. You get more resilient the more times you spend not reacting. You feel more confidence the more resilient you grow to be. And your ability to regularly and effectively practice non-reaction increases with your confidence. Greater and more real confidence, inner power, and self-trust follow from this virtuous cycle that feeds upon itself. It's a voyage of lifelong learning, a process of becoming ever more the master of your own fate, the builder of your own inner world, the captain of your own ship. And that is, finally, the most potent and long-lasting form of confidence available, from the inside out, based on self-awareness, self-acceptance, and self-trust. It's about really being strong, not about passing for strength. Number 8, attracting positivity. When you consistently project an aura of calm and composure, when you embody resilience and inner strength, when you develop a stoic attitude, you seem to attract positive energy, positive circumstances, and positive connections into your life. This is a fascinating, often misinterpreted, and sometimes even laughed at phenomena. Labeling this as some mystical law of attraction, a cosmic concept whereby the universe mysteriously conspires to give you whatever you want simply because you want it, or because you have pictured it with enough intensity, is enticing. Nonetheless, the Stoic emphasis on reason, logic, and the natural order of the universe would probably warn against such a simple, maybe deceptive interpretation. Although they would stress the need of knowing the how and why of this phenomena, they would not be discounting the truth of having more favorable results when living morally. It's not about magically attracting things, conjuring them out of thin air using just pure willpower or positive thinking, as some supporters of the law of attraction would advocate. The Stoics realized that although we can shape our own actions, judgments, and character, we cannot directly control the external world or bend it to our will. The cosmos runs under natural laws, a complex interaction of cause and effect. They would contend that depending on positive affirmations or visualizations to believe we can control the universe is not only illogical, but also maybe sets us up for disappointment and frustration when reality unavoidably does not fit our expectations. Rather, the attractiveness of positivity that results from living Stoic values is far more rooted, far more pragmatic, and far more consistent with reason, virtue, and a realistic view of how the world operates. It's mostly about being in a state of mind, a manner of being, where you are more open, more responsive, and more tuned in, spotting and grabbing possibilities as they present themselves. Your mind becomes clearer, your focus sharpens, and you become more conscious of the possibilities that surround you, possibilities that might have otherwise been invisible to you because you were too caught up in your own emotional turmoil. When you're not constantly consumed by anxiety, fear, self-doubt, or anger, when you're not reacting impulsively and emotionally to every little setback, annoyance, or perceived slight, Emotional noise won't divert you, negativity won't blind you, fear won't paralyze you. Because they are too focused on their own reactions, their own worries, their own self-imposed constraints, you may see the possibilities others might pass by. Moreover, such kinds of peaceful power, inner tranquility, and self-possession that results from Stoicism appeal to individuals instinctively. People who are cool under duress, who are tenacious in the face of hardship, who exude stability, groundedness, and real self-confidence appeal to them. People desire to be surrounded by folks that elevate, inspire, free from drama, negativity, and emotional baggage from their life. You attract positive connections, encouraging partnerships, cooperative possibilities, and individuals who really value your character and strengths when you live up to these Stoic standards. Not because you're attempting to wow them, but rather because you really reflect traits they value. People are more likely to trust you, appreciate you, value your thoughts, and want to collaborate with you. Not because the universe is magically working in your favor, but rather because you are in a mental, emotional, and behavioral condition where you are more likely to identify them, chase them with bravery and tenacity, and maximize them when they present themselves. This seems to open opportunities. You're actively searching for opportunities. You're building them by your actions, initiative, and positive contacts with others, and you're ready to grab them when they show themselves. You're not passive waiting for them to land on your lap. You're proactive, not passive. It also speaks to your presentation to the world. When you're cool under pressure, confident and self-assured, you present yourself as competent, capable. You're more likely to be perceived as someone who can manage responsibility, someone who can be trusted, someone who can get things done, someone who is a great benefit to whatever team or company, and that inevitably results in more chances, more obligations, more confidence, and greater success in your activities. It's not about magically drawing everything in line with good thinking or visualizing then. It's about developing inner strength, resilience, wisdom, and virtue. Then, naturally, as a result of those traits, one becomes more open to spotting and grabbing possibilities, draws favorable and supportive relationships, and leads a life with more meaning, purpose, and pleasure. The positivity, the positive outcomes, the positive relationships, and the positive possibilities will follow as a natural and logical byproduct of living a life of reason, integrity, and virtue. Focus on virtue, control what you can, your thoughts, judgments, and actions. Accept what you can't, external events, and the positivity, the positive outcomes, the path to a more fulfilling life will follow. It is logical result of character. It is not magic. Number 9. A continuous practice. This is not a magic bullet, an overnight cure, or a short fix for the complexity of human life. Not a destination you reach is learning to act as though nothing influences you, or more precisely, learning to deliberately pick your answers to outside events instead of being driven by impassionately heated reactions. This is a voyage, a lifetime of practice, a never-ending process of learning, development, adaptation, and skill, honing for self-awareness, self-regulation, and self-mastery. It's not about reaching some idealized, flawless, and finally unrealistically detached or indifferent emotional state. It's not about turning into a robot without feeling or empathy. It's about making consistent growth, about becoming more self-aware, more resilient, more compassionate, more in control of your inner world, your thoughts, judgments, and actions, and less under control by outside events. It calls for careful, consistent, committed practice, Learning a musical instrument, a sport, a new language, or any other complicated ability calls for time, effort, patience, and a readiness to daily put in the work. After a few weeks of disorganized practice, you wouldn't expect to become a concert pianist, and you wouldn't expect to become a Stoic master, a paragon of self-control, overnight. Rewiring your brain, breaking old, ingrained habits of reactive behavior, those reflexive, knee-jerk emotional responses conditioned over years, and developing new, more positive patterns of conscious, intentional, and moral response take time. Developing the deep self-awareness required to identify your emotional triggers, comprehend the stories you tell yourself about the world and the events that transpire inside it, and challenge those stories, so questioning their validity, reframing them when they are no longer serving you, when they are guiding you down a path of negativity, anxiety, or anger. There will be times when you slip up, when you act impulsively, when you let your emotions control you, when you revert to old behavioral habits. That is reasonable. That is a natural, even expected component of the process. Try not to beat yourself over it. Let a brief lapse, a transient setback, demoralize you or cause you to believe you have failed. Every now and then, everyone trips. Everybody has times of weakness when their emotions control their reason. The secret is to accept the slip, to honestly and objectively investigate what set off it, to know what caused that lack in self-control, to grow from it, to extract the lesson from the experience, then to recommit yourself to your practice, so picking yourself up and onward. It's about making regular progress, about getting a little better every day, every week, every year, about always trying to become the best version of yourself, not about reaching an unreachable state of perfection. Consider it as akin to building a muscle, as we already covered. Avoiding exercise does not help you become stronger. Rather, it protects your muscles from any form of strain or stress. Quite the reverse is true in truth. By regularly testing your muscles, by pushing yourself just a little bit farther each time, by progressively raising the resistance, you grow stronger. And occasionally, you will run over obstacles. You may have to stop training to heal from a muscle pull. That does not mean, however, you have failed. It simply means you have to change your strategy to let your body heal. Then go back to it to resume your training and keep the process of increasing strength underway. With the acquisition of emotional resilience and self-control, Stoic practice follows the same line. There will be times when you feel as though you are making great progress, when you feel as though you are grasping these ideas, and others when you feel as though you are regressing, that is, when you are failing to meet your own expectations. The main thing, though, is to keep practicing, keep learning, keep developing, keep using the Stoic ideas to the real-world events you come across. Keep including them into the fabric of your existence. The secret is to keep practicing, to keep sharpening your abilities of self-awareness, self-regulation, and conscious response, to keep applying the Stoic principles to your daily life, to every contact, every difficulty, every possibility. Whether it's learning a craft, speaking a foreign language, or playing the piano, every ability calls for constant effort, devotion, and a real passion to the process. A book, a film, or a lecture cannot teach you anything you can then simply instantly, effortlessly, and precisely apply. You have to live, you have to embody, you have to include these ideas into the very core of your being so that they become second nature, so that they become your default style of reacting to the world, so that they become an essential part of who you are. It's a lengthy game, a lifetime of self-improvement, a never-ending process of becoming the best version of yourself, a road of virtue, knowledge, and peace of mind. Without a doubt, the benefits, inner serenity, resilience, joy, sense of purpose, ability to gracefully and equanimously negotiate life's challenges, also well worth the work. Number 10. Unlocking your potential. In the end, pretending as though nothing influences you, more precisely, developing the ability to deliberately pick your reactions to outside events and control your internal reactions, is not only about building resilience or lessening sensitivity. It's about something far more profound, something far more transforming. It's about realizing your human potential. It's about releasing yourself from the shackles of reactivity, from the impulsive, emotionally driven responses that frequently hold us back from achieving our actual potential, from the limit our growth, and from the impede us from live a life of purpose, meaning, and enjoyment. It's about entering your power, not power over others. Rather, the infinitely more vital power over yourself, power over your ideas, judgments, and actions, power to choose who you want to be and how you want to live. It's about assuming extreme responsibility for your own emotional well-being, for your character, for the decisions you make, and for becoming the master of your own inner world, instead of a slave to outside events or transient feelings. It's about leading a life informed by virtue and reason, as the Stoic writers so brilliantly and persuasively argued. They felt that the road to eudaimonia, often translated as happiness, flourishing, or living well, lay not in the search of pleasure or external achievement, but in the development of virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, or self-control. These qualities were pragmatic, useful ideas to be applied to the daily reality of life, the little and apparently meaningless events that make up the fabric of our existence. They were not only abstract, philosophical conceptions, they were the compass points that directed our choices, behavior, and contacts with others, therefore offering a structure for leading an honest, purposeful, and meaningful existence. Wisdom let us see what was really good and bad, to grasp the basic distinction between what we could influence, our ideas, decisions, and behavior, and what we could not, external occurrences, other people's opinions, the vagaries of fortune. Justice led us to act with compassion, understanding, and respect, therefore honoring the inherent dignity of every human being, and to treat others fairly and equitably, even if it's unpleasant, even if it means confronting adversity, criticism, or even danger. Courage provides us the strength, moral and physical, to meet difficulties, to conquer hurdles, to stand up for what is right. And moderation, that is self-control, let us control our impulses, our emotions, and our needs, so as to moderate our reactions and prevent us from becoming into slaves to our ego, our anxieties, or passion. We actively develop these qualities inside ourselves by means of non-reaction, deliberate choice of response to outside events, cultivation of that pause between stimulus and response. We get more wise, fair, brave, and self-regulated. We get more real in our contacts with people, more deliberate in our behavior, and more in line with our ideals. We grow less reactive, less impulsive, less prone to be persuaded by transient feelings, and less focused on outside views or the erratic assessments of others. Focusing on what we can control, our own character, our own decisions, our own search of virtue, we grow less connected to results outside of our reach. It's about realizing the person you were supposed to be, the person you could be, the person you would respect should you meet them. It's about living a life of purpose, a life of meaning, a life of joy that comes from inside, from the constant practice of virtue and the unflinching dedication to self-mastery, not depending on outside conditions. It's about realizing deep down that real happiness, real satisfaction, true eudaimonia cannot come from the chase of pleasure, the accumulation of wealth, the quest of fame or power. It results from leading a life consistent with reason and nature, a life of integrity, a life of virtue. It results from working toward to be the finest human being you can be. It's about seeing that working against reason, against our higher nature. Vice is the only true evil. Virtue is the only true good. Everything else, wealth, health, reputation, pleasure, misery, even life itself, is nothing. Only the raw materials, the canvas on which we create the masterwork of our life, the chances by which we show our goodness. It is not simple to follow this Stoic road, this road of self-improvement, this ongoing search for virtue and self-mastery. It calls for constant work, unflinching loyalty, a readiness to face our own inadequacies, our own self-deceptions, and a lifetime of learning and personal development commitment. Still, the benefits, inner serenity, resiliency, delight from leading a life of integrity, meaning and purpose, are almost unbounded. Unlocking your potential and leading a moral life not only greatly enhance your personal well-being, experience of life, but also help to make the world a better place, even in little but important respects. In a world sometimes seems to be dark and confusing, you become a lighthouse of hope, strength, knowledge, and inspiration for others around you. And it is finally the best legacy you can leave behind. It's about living a life of integrity, purpose, and meaning, a life according to your values, principles, and highest ideals, not about becoming famous or rich. And most definitely, that is a life well lived, a life that counts. Are you therefore ready to assert control? Are you ready to see what occurs when you stop? Let the small things trip you. I'm telling you, the outcomes are amazing. Remember to hit the subscribe button and join the community if you thought this video useful. We are here together. Tell me in the comments what you intend to change beginning today. And as usual, I appreciate you seeing.